Hello everybody, welcome back to Analyze Our Games part 26. So this game I played at chess.com. It's an interesting game because it's a kind of a classical example of fighting against the French defense. Yeah. So my opponent was called Lionel Tossing, and he got an ELO of 2009. So he's a good player, chess player. Yeah. So let's take a look at the game. I played white, e4. Let me just close the thing here. So I played white, e4. My opponent answered e6. So that's the French defense. d4, d5, knight c3. I always play knight c3. Yeah, maybe I should try something different, but I'm so used to it that it's been working, so I never change it. Knight f6, e5, knight fd7, f4, c5, all standard here, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e3, queen d6, a3. So this is a trap. In case my opponent takes on b2, I'm gonna play knight a4 and his queen's trapped. I have won many games using this simple and effective trap. Okay, yeah, but my opponent played very well here. He took on d5, on d4, and I took with the bishop. Knight takes, bishop c4, c5. Yeah, so I played knight a4, trying to force the matters here. Check on a5, c3. Yeah, that's the best option here, because yeah, my queen defends my knight and I'm attacking this guy here. So he took on d4, I took with the queen. Yeah, so position is equal here, and then my opponent played b5. So this is not good. b6 is better, trying to develop the bad bishop. Yeah, then I can exchange the queens here, and I think it's a good position for white. Yeah, it's not gonna be easy to win, but okay, this is what we get. My knight is not well placed on a4. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna have to make some maneuvers and try to put this knight on d4. This would be ideal. Okay, but here's an equal position. Okay, excellent. So b5 is a mistake, because now I can develop my knight to c5 and exchange it or do something. My opponent castled. Better is to take on c5. Yeah, then I take, and my opponent is able to develop his pieces and maybe try to exchange the queen. Yeah, yeah, this is a good position. I can also force the exchanges of this, or then my opponent is, yeah, and even a draw can be reached here. It's an equal position. Okay, my opponent castled. Actually, I was trying to thinking about putting this knight on d4. Yeah, so I thought about playing knight b3 and then moving the queen and trying to install this knight here. This is usually what white does in these situations. Yeah, so it's very good. Okay, castling, then bishop d3. It's also possible b4, trying to force the queen to move to some place, like I said before. Yeah, so knight b3, and then in case black takes on d4, my knight is on d4, and it's a very good position as black has no black bishop, yeah, black squared bishop, so the removal of this knight on d4 is kind of difficult. Then a6 and bishop d3. White is a little bit better, but nothing much. But after bishop d3, my opponent played this, yeah, a6. Also possible is try to force the exchange of pieces by playing queen d7, c7, and then I would take on d7 and bishop takes, and again white is a little bit better, but nothing much. Okay, so after a6, I castled. I wanted to put my king into safety. Lila suggests h4, so Lila is crazy about moving the h or a pawns. This is something we have seen many grandmasters doing, yeah, so it's very common nowadays. Good, so after castling, queen c7, then I had to take on d7, or it would be possible to play knight b3. This is probably even better. Yes, so I took. I think it would be better to keep the knight. Okay, next time, if I got the same position, sometimes it's possible, sometimes not. So then bishop takes on d7. So as you can see, black has developed his pieces, the rooks are connected, the king is safe, yeah, but now it's time to start some attacks, yeah. So f5, so this is a very common maneuver in the French defense, yeah. It would be better if black had no light squared bishop, yeah, but it's okay. I think computer suggests g4, yeah, then to try to advance the pawn, and in case of exchanges then I take with the pawn, because the idea here is to move the pawn to f6 and try to destroy or do some changes in the pawn configuration here, and this is usually very good because sometimes in these situations I can even start moving my king to the other side of the board, because this is kind of solid, fixed, and attack on the king side. So this is very common, depends the situation, we can do this because the center is closed, so and it's not easy for my opponent to exchange things here, yeah. To exchange something here, he would have to move the queen, the rook to c8, and then try to exchange the queens because of this pin. So then black forces the exchange of queens. But yeah, then I played f5. My opponent took. I took with the bishop, and here is probably the thing that my opponent got wrong. I think probably he would have to attack my pawn. As you can see, this is an isolated pawn, and so some exchanges would happen, and okay, we got an even position. The only thing here is that white's pawn is fragile and black's pawn is fragile, but I think it's a very equal position, yeah. It's very hard to win. But here my opponent made a mistake. Yeah, he played bishop c6, and it's a mistake. And then I got this chance of playing e6. Here, my opponent, in case of taking here, I would take with a check. I can pin this my opponent's queen. Maybe he would defend here. I would exchange the rooks and attack. So as you can see, my opponent has some kind of difficulties to defend this pawn. I don't know if white is much better here. Yeah, a1. Yeah, so the threat is check here. My opponent can't take here because of, yeah, white is better here. It's not easy to win positions like this, but I think I would prefer, of course, being white. So after e6, my opponent played f6. So now, in exchange for not opening up the position, now I have a passed pawn. Yeah. So here, white is better because of this passed pawn, and maybe one day this guy is gonna be promoted to something. Okay, so I defended my pawn because the pawn has to be defended because now it's not very strong yet, but as long as the pieces are exchanged, it becomes stronger and stronger. So queen e7, he tried to block the position. This is correct. Yes. h4, I was thinking about playing h5 to avoid my opponent playing g6 and expelling my bishop from f5, but yeah, he played it first. Okay, the computer suggests this rook f3, and it's very nice because it has some kind of the idea of pinning the knight, the king. Yeah, so it's very nice. In some situations I can even sacrifice the bishop or start moving the pawn to h5 and putting more pressure, moving the queen and attacking this pawn. So white is much better here. And okay, after queen e7, h4, g6, now I have to move my bishop, and then the computer suggests this bishop e6, e8, but then I would take on d5. White is better. White got a very good position here just because of this passed pawn. Yeah, the next idea in positions like this, the best way is to unblock this. Yeah, try to exchange the queens and try to make this pawn advanced. It's not easy. Sometimes you lose it. Yeah, if you are hasty, you lose the pawn and then it's a drawn position. Yeah, because the pawns are equal. 5 and 6. White has one pawn, but if I lose this pawn, then the position is equal. And then after g6, I played bishop c2. Yeah, the idea was to move this bishop to b3 and try to attack this isolated pawn. My pawn is isolated, but it's still defended by a rook. So, and the queen is attacking, but yeah, it can't do much. Rook a e8, putting more pressure on this pawn. b3, bishop b3 is a mistake according to the computer, so better is to play rook e3, maybe trying to double the rooks on the e file to make it even more protected, and then start some attack on the isolated pawn. But okay, I played this because I thought it would be nice. Yeah, so in case of rook e3, then we have some good moves here. For example, h5, yeah, is okay, trying to make some damage to the pawn here, and maybe the queen can get into this spots here. Yeah, so, and in case of rook c8, and then h5, and there are many things. For example, here's a mistake, f5, because I can take on. This is a very beautiful sacrifice, yeah? And if the rook takes, I take with the bishop, and the idea is to open up the lines here, and go to a mate. Yeah, so that's really important to spot these tactical opportunities. Yes. In case of bishop takes, it's the same. Yeah, we have the check here, and then black has to sacrifice the queen, and even sacrificing the queen is not enough. So yeah, but I didn't see this idea of rook e3, bishop b3, and then my opponent played rook d8. Yeah, so defending, it's kind of a passive position, yeah, because of this pawn is so advanced. Black has to be very passive. The computer suggests h5, but then I can play rook f2 with the same idea. Yeah, I can double the rooks on the f file or the e file. This is why we have to be very flexible in life and in chess, yeah, to be able to spot these subtleties. Okay, then after rook d8, I played queen b6. It's also a good game, a good idea to play h5. Yeah, always h5. So I think Lila is one of the best players thinking about the sacrifices of the h-pawn and the a-pawn. It's very common nowadays, and even grandmasters are using these ideas lately. Maybe not lately, but yeah, it's very common nowadays. But okay, then I played queen b6, so trying to attack the bishop and maybe win this pawn and get a very good position, a winning position here. My opponent played bishop b7. Yeah, it's very sensible. Maybe rook d6 is better, but then I can play here. I don't know. Yeah, white can't. Black can't win the pawn yet, because if it takes here, I take the queen. So I win, and yeah, we have this position. Yeah, rook d6, queen c5, h5, bishop c2. So attacking this g6 pawn. Black is gonna play probably king g7 or something. Yeah, but white is a little bit better here. But after bishop b7, then f2. Yeah, it's a little bit late, but I played this move, trying to double the rooks, because I don't have many things. I don't have a crushing attack. Huh? It's possible to sacrifice the pawn again, h5. Yeah. If it takes, these pawns are gonna be fragile and weak, and I can now use the G file as an attacking point. Okay, so rook f2, rook d6, rook d4. So this was a kind of a trap. Yeah, when I played this move, yeah, I spent 49 seconds, so I thought a little bit about this. I could play here to defend the pawn, okay, but then I thought, oh, let's play this and see what my opponent does, and he fell into my trap. It's better to play here, king g7, to avoid this long diagonal. Yeah, this is gonna be the theme of this game. Yeah, this pin, this pin is gonna be horrible. Yeah, to black. And here, for example, I would defend my pawn, and maybe it would be very hard to make progress, maybe draw or something. But after rook takes on e6, that's a bad mistake. It's a blunder. Why? Because now I won the pawn, and now I have a very nasty let me make this pin. Yeah, so this pin is gonna be the winning thing. I took, my opponent took, and I took. As you can see, the threat is still here. Yeah, so two pieces are attacking this rook. My opponent has to defend it one more, and I attacked it one more. So 3, 3, and here this is a forced move, and then I played a very weighty move. It's like, I don't know if it's because I've been studying some Capablanca games, that he was he had no hurry. Yeah, he was, once he got some advantages, he would never let it go, and he would win the game. So maybe it was this. I didn't take on e6. It would be winning, of course, yeah, but I decided to play b3 because I knew that when I liquidated all the heavy pieces, my pawns would win the game. So I tried to make a passed pawn on the queen side. Yeah, this is very nice. I'm very happy about this game. So then my opponent played f5. This is logical. Yeah, maybe he could check here, but then I would just move the king, and the thing would be kind of the same. I could liquidate everything, yeah, and even win this way. So this is crushing for white. But then my opponent played f5. I continued with the idea of making a passed pawn. I could have taken on e6 and it would be the same. Yeah, so it's a winning position, of course. Yeah, I have to admit this would be quicker, but yeah, no problem. The next move I would liquidate everything and go to a winning endgame. Then my opponent moved. Yeah, he had to play f5, and now queen f6 to avoid this. But now it's kind of too late because I can liquidate everything, and it would be also possible to play king f6, but then I would liquidate everything, yeah, and go to a winning endgame again. Okay, I took on b5. This took, and here's the passed pawn. So my opponent took, I took here. As you can see, I have a passed pawn, and it's very far from the battle scene. My king's opponent is pinned, so he can't move his queen, and his king has he can't move his king. His queen has to be here to avoid the losing of the pawn. And my opponent is like how can I say, he's he can't move. Yeah, he's in a very bad position, and he can't move many pieces, and he can't do anything. And then after f4, now it's time to liquidate and go to winning endgame. So as you can see, we played like 2 seconds, we took everything. And here, so this is the position. Yeah, my pawn is isolated, passed, and it's gonna march and become a queen. My opponent's king has to go after this pawn, and while it goes after this pawn, I can swap everything here and take and mop up. That's the word, mop up everything on this side of the board. So f2, even f4, f5 is okay, is winning too. So my opponent took on e6, then king f2, h6. Yeah, maybe trying to defend, but doesn't matter because my king is gonna go through the pawns and mop up everything. King f3, g5. Yeah, maybe it's okay to play king e5, but then if he does anything like that, then I can't go, and my pawn is gonna promote there, because you have to remember the square. Yeah, the rule of the square. g5, I took on h5, h5, and h takes g5, and then king g4. Yeah. King d6, I took. My opponent goes after the pawn I took here. My opponent goes after g4, king takes g5, and here he played very quickly g6, and king c6, g7, and this pawn is going to promote. Yeah, well, we have to admit that my opponent could have resigned earlier, but you know, we are playing very quickly, and sometimes when you're playing very quick, you don't have time to resign. But here he comes to his senses and resign. So I hope you like this game. It's very interesting. It has two very important strategical themes: the pinning and the creation of a passed pawn. Thank you very much. Take care. See you around. Bye.